publishing his dissertation, The Keyboard Suites of Bach, a consideration of the horizontal and vertical elements found therein, in 1950. One can find that book in Columbia's main library, across the street. You could walk over right now and hold it in your hands. In 1953, he died of polio at the age of 32. When he died, he left behind 3 young children. James, age 7, Kathleen, age 4, and Michelle, age 2, my mom. They quickly noticed that talking about their father made their mother sad. So they remained silent about him. This silence continued into adulthood, and this silent grief was passed on to the next generation, James's grandchildren. A Night Song examines the intergenerational pain and potent connection resulting from James's early death. And it explores the past, present, and future collapsed into a single space. The recording that you'll hear at the beginning is an actual recording of James, his wife Gwendolyn, and their son. The images that you see are his actual children. The main character is an amalgam of James's son and me and Jamie, his grandsons. This marks our first collaboration with our granddad. The scene presented tonight is an abridgment of the 60-minute play we're continuing to develop, with Ted Bushman playing Davey, Leslie Hiatt playing the doctor and reading stage directions, Robert Willis on the cello, and Taylor Hatch directing.
It's an evening in the year 1978, and Davey is pulling a box off his library shelf. He puts it on the table and pulls tape off the top, then begins to take things out of it. A musical score, a videotape, a journal, a tape recorder. Davey turns on the tape recorder and hears the voices of his father and mother and of himself as a child.
And where does the elevator take you?
It takes me up to the roof.
That's right, up to the roof. And when you get up there, do you play up on top of the roof?
Mm-hmm.
And what do they have up there for you to play with?
Playground.
They have a playground up there.
And a gate.
They have a gate, and is there a big fence all around it?
Don't know where to get in. I said if on the gate, we'll let people get in because a toy's in there.
Yeah.
You have a key.
And you have a key to get up to the roof on the playground. What kind of toys do you play with up there?
A London filled in the middle.
We'd like to sing London Bridge for you.
On the way.
So you better sing first. London.
London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. London Bridge is falling
Davey
down.
turns off the tape recorder quickly.
When I turn off the light in her room at bedtime, my 2-year-old tells me that she can't see. Your eyes will adjust, I tell her. I explain that her pupils will dilate, that the rods will detect the little light there is in the room, that the cones won't be much help here. I tell her that her retina is like a carpet covered in rods and cones, and for some people, that detaches and they go blind, and we hope that doesn't happen. I used to be terrified of the dark. The only way to calm down was to sing and sing until I fell asleep. I don't actually always notice when the light goes now.
We hear the sound of a 2-year-old crying and a wheezing cough. Davey picks up a blanket that represents the 2-year-old. He begins to rock and comfort. As he is speaking, the crying stops.
I'm sorry, little one, I'm sorry. Just breathe, there you go. See? See the moon? That's the moon. He's got a little face up there, that's the man in the moon. We don't know much about him. I mean, a little bit, I guess. The man in the moon, the man in the moon, he eats cottage cheese and spoon. He has long nose, and he doesn't wear clothes. Hooray for the man in the moon. This little naked guy up there eating cottage cheese.
He puts the baby back in the crib.
My sisters would cry at that front. For Dad. Night after night. He left behind things, us, for instance. That sound. The only thing keeping him breathing after his diaphragm was paralyzed. That's how Mom knew he was still alive in the hospital. That sound every day when she got off the elevator, it became our mantra. The thing that meant we were all still together. He left us each a song, one for each child. I have this video of my sister listening to her song 40 years from now. There she is. Wow, she's old. she was 2 when he died. She's sitting down to listen here. Okay, I'll play it. I think just occurred to me before she's been listening for him for a long time. Okay, here we go. Swimming. I don't remember much. People were scared of swimming when polio hit. It can be transmitted through water. It can be transmitted through a lot of things. Just touching with someone with polio is enough to contract it. I found a map of the US from 1953 that shows death rates by state. The data were compiled about 2 years later, 1955. Only one state was black that year. We moved there so he could teach. We didn't know. I wonder if that's what it would look like for all of us if we had maps of the United States that illustrated our cause of death. That no matter what you do, you're funneled towards the black. March 28th, 1953, Jonas Salk invented a vaccine in Pittsburgh. Dad died 144 days later. How long does it take to get from Pittsburgh to Minnesota? Probably not 144 days. Dr. Salk published a paper about it. It says, it must be remembered that considerable time is required for the preparation and study of each new batch of experimental vaccine before human inoculations can be considered. This imposes a limitation in the speed with which this work can be extended. Within these intractable limits, every effort is being made. That's what it says. Every effort is being made in passive voice. I would have gotten it to him.
Davey's legs give out underneath him and he catches himself on a hospital bed.
I would have gotten it to him. I couldn't have. He wasn't even sick yet, and I was already paralyzed in the hospital. I was 7. There were a lot of hot towels. I remember coming up the elevator.
He climbs onto the hospital bed.
London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. London Bridge is falling down, my fair lady.
A doctor appears and warns the visitors. He says, "Thank you for your visit. We ask you to stay behind this line. As you know, he is highly contagious. As you can see, your son is in good hands." And yes, he's been singing that all day. The cellist stands up. The cellist walks to the line. The cellist crosses the line, walking toward the bed. The doctor tries to stop him, saying, "You can't go in there like that! He is highly contagious. You need to listen to us right now! You need to stop!" The cellist ignores the doctor, gently puts a hand on Davey's forehead, leans down slowly and kisses him. The lights go out. Davey sits up in bed, noticing that he is able to move again. No one is around him. He stands and steps forward.
One moment you're making pithy remarks about a scientific paper. Here's something that came to me in the shower this morning. Here we go. People ask me if I have music in my blood, and I say, yeah, if you drop me out the window, when I land, it'll sound like the pines of Rome. I was thinking of taking a different direction and talking about how when a kidney stone is cutting out my ureter, the discerning listener can make out a muffled adagio for strings. Keep working on it. But I do have actual musical bodily fluids, mucus, for example, urine. I have music literally coming out of my ears. In fact, I noticed a rattling the other day, and so I tilted my head to one side, and out dropped a ball of wax about the size of a raisin. There's no punchline to that particular story. Back there. I hadn't remembered. We should have this figured out. In 40 years, we meet together, we talk. But we should have landed on something. Something to make sense of this, to make it okay. Look at those faces. There are years in those faces. I'm old Hard to believe I'd get old. Do we figure this out? Is there something? 2 weeks. 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, an embryonic opossum becomes a fetus, becomes an infant opossum, squeezing itself out of the opossum womb. In 2 weeks, the Postal Service comes 12 times. In 2 weeks, you can quit a job with decorum. You can throw a lentil in a bag with a wet paper towel and see roots and leaves. You can wear the same pair of pants to work without anyone feeling like it's worth to mention that they noticed. You can notice that nothing has changed at all. And if you find yourself with polio, surrounded by nurses and hot towels, and you have a healthy father, in 2 weeks, you can kill your dad.
You go on the elevator.
Breathe. Just breathe.
Where does the elevator go?
Playground up there.
The silence is broken by Davey's baby crying and coughing. He goes to her and picks her up, begins to rock. She continues to cry. He tries humming to her and she continues to cry. He walks to the table and presses play on the tape recorder. A night song for Michelle begins to play. His baby is soothed and falls silent. He leans down and very deliberately kisses his baby. He sees that she is sleeping and puts her back down. Davey walks back to the table and slowly starts putting items back in the box. He finishes with the tape recorder that continues to play. Tapes up the box with the faint sound of the tape recorder still audible, then places it back on the shelf.